up sort of cross-pollinating, like the one sort of improves the other or feeds the other. And something that I'm noticing just in this conversation that we all sort of have in common is that I don't think any of us started out thinking, oh, I have this like terrific idea that I've had since I was a little kid. I've been drawing this character. Like none of us like that. That it's like they all sort of start almost like a lark, almost like oh, here's like kind of a neat idea for a character, and then there's like a magnetism there, like a gravity, where it starts sort of attracting all these other interests and thoughts and characters and ideas, and you end up with like an aggregate that you build on.
Right. Well, what you find out is that the thing you created can become a vehicle for expressing all kinds of other things that you're thinking or feeling or whatever. That vehicle can be built bigger and encompass more things.
What you're talking about sounds like sort of the model that comics followed for like their first 50 or so years, where it wasn't, you know, we're really lucky that we have access to printing and technology where there's no middleman we have to go through. We can go take our ideas and directly put them, but you know, things weren't always that way. Technology wasn't always as accessible, so you know, artists had to work for these, you know, you know, comics companies and do whatever, you know, boring product that the company wanted to put out, and they managed to sneak their own point of view into that, managed to sort of subvert it, and now, like for us, the handcuffs are off, and they've been off for a long time. You know, people, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, you know, were, you know, so, I mean, it's just like a great opportunity for us right now. Alex, I was wondering, like with yours, do you have any idea, like what your end, like how many volumes, like where you see your endpoint being?
Actually, I just finished the third and final volume last Wednesday.
Oh wow! Wow! Congratulations!
Wow!
Thanks.
So yeah, that's worth clapping for.
Final page count was 487.
Wow!
Yeah, I mean, just one of these volumes, for most people, like, and there was a time in comics where that was their endpoint. Like if I could put together a volume like that and have it tell a complete story, and that would be considered epic.
Yeah, and the first volume is a self-contained story that didn't necessarily need the rest of it just to be entertaining or sell well.
So this is sort of something that, like, if they wanted to experience your story, they could get it all there, and then if they like, you know, loved it and wanted more, then
there's the other two volumes.
That's like when I started mine, I didn't have any idea of like how long it was going to stretch. Like I was kind of naive and thought, well, I could do this forever. I'll just do it forever. And I've been doing it a really long time, and I'm still kind of far from the end. Like I haven't completed one series yet. I have, you know, 2 series that haven't reached an endpoint, and now for the next one that I'm starting, I'm thinking just like what you ended up with, where I want to do a story that in 1 or 2 volumes tells a complete story that like expresses like the best expression of of the story that I want to tell, and then I have like a larger story that I want to tell, but it's modular. It's so that if I finish that volume and decide I've sort of had enough, like I've said it all, I can just jettison the other 2. But then if I don't, I still have sort of like a game plan.
And I have even ideas for more to add on to it if I ever want to go back to the setting. I just don't want to do it now.
Right. Right, exactly, and you own it, so it's something you can always come back to when you know you have your whole life ahead of you. And,
exactly.
So is Myth ending?
Not necessarily ending, but when I started it, I sort of started this like story arc, and it's taken like 10 years, and I haven't reached, like I've told like sort of little stories within that story arc, but I haven't ended that like major story arc. And when I first started, I thought maybe I could keep that whole story arc going forever, but I want some closure to it, and I imagine, you know, some portion of my readership would like to see some kind of ending. I still have other, just like you, Alex, I have other stories that I want to tell, but I feel like I need to have like some closure, so I can say this is, you know, chapter 1, or this is, you know, if it were a movie, this is the first movie, or a miniseries, this is the first miniseries, and then tell the next story. So yeah, and up until about a year ago, I wasn't thinking like that. I was just thinking, you know, I'm working on my next 8 opus book. I'm working on my, you know, but now I'm really thinking I gotta, you know, sort of bring some of these things to fruition, you know, within, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more volumes, and then start the next thing. And then when I start the next thing, I could just I mean, this isn't my plan right now, but I could just pick up exactly where I left off and do it, or I could, do like a big time jump where it's, several generations later, and you can tell a whole new story, but also through, backwards references or through like people seeing what's changed between then and now. There's almost like a third story being told simultaneously, and in the gap between those stories.
Lot of possibility.
The way I see it is that even if if I have finished the story for now, that there's always going to be more stories to tell.
Yeah.
Even if, whether they're in universe or totally different things. That's just the way I see it. And then my whole approach to comics.
When you come up with like an interesting universe, like I think that that's very attractive to a lot of people because it's almost interactive. Like they sort of want to play in that, they want to find out what's next in that universe. And I mean, in some cases, whether you like it or not, it does become collaborative with your audience.
How long do you think it's going? Do you anticipate it's going to take to finish?
Well, Plastic Farm. Plastic Farm is going to be about, that's 300 pages. It's going to be about 2,400 to 3,000 pages long. I know how it ends. I know pretty much all the middle part. I'm purposefully not scripting out. This is Plastic Farm Part 1. I'm working on Plastic Farm Part 2 right now, which is going to be about twice as long as Part 1. And Part 3 will be about the same length as Part 1. But I'm purposely not scripting Part 3 because I'm finding it's a lot more interesting if I leave myself some surprises along the way.
I think that's essential.
Absolutely.
Right. For what we're doing.
I mean, I know the plot. I know some things that happen, but characterizations, the final destiny of many of the characters. I know a bunch of the people who will die, and that's pretty much everybody.
But that's the story of everyone on Earth,
Yes, because that'll be so glorious when I get to kill off some of these people. Like, oh, Raoul, you have been annoying the crap out of me in this book. But yeah, the final, the epilogue, if you will. I know the final line of the book. I've known it for many years now. It's just a journey in getting there.
Do you think it's possible that that specific thing that you've come up with as the end point that you're very sure about, very clear about, that in the process of making this long journey, it might go in a totally different direction that you hadn't anticipated?
Not really. Mostly, it's because it's Chester's and the main character, and it's his journey, and I know where he ends up. And if he ends up somewhere different than where I've planned, then everything up to that point is kind of pointless.
It almost becomes a philosophical thing of whether you believe in destiny and predetermined, or free versus free will. And I mean, some people view like the idea. I mean, this seems like a common view that if you don't stick to your gameplay, if you don't stick to your endpoint, then that's a sign of weakness. Like you've. But I don't see that at all. Like I mean, I think it is, and if you do have a clear vision, that it is good, to stick with it. But sometimes there's things that you never could have anticipated in a million years when you were way at the beginning and just looking at this, big mountain you were about to climb. But then once you sort of get in with the rocks and that you realize like other paths.
Your views on life might change by the time.
I mean, and that's true. There's stuff within the book. The ending itself, that's set, but I mean, there's a rabbit king. It's like there's some doodle I drew in the back of another panel of just a rabbit wearing a crown. I'm like, haha, that's pretty funny. And then all
now
of
you're
a sudden,
stuck with him for years.
But now, like 8 issues later, I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that character, and I'm going to put him in there. He's going to be like this weird background figure that he's been in like 3 panels, and everybody asks me about it. And, oh yeah, the Rabbit King, and his rabbit army. Bless you. But now there's like huge sections of the story built around this little thing that I drew in the background of the panel, and that's the sort of thing that really interests me in the journey aspect of the comic and trying to reconcile those sorts of things with the